Allegiances change as we gain life experience, as we grow as individuals, as our wisdom increases, as we reflect upon our experiences and as they mount. What can guide us and what should guide us should be a grander mission that can be more specified as we gain wisdom from experience. If we view ourselves as on the side of life itself and the perpetuation, preservation of all life, then we will have a general direction that would be beneficial for our own life and all life on this planet, not just human. And while we might even do something that go against laws, because laws change, morality changes in society as societies evolve and develop and either become more corrupt or better. The grander curve of history, it seems like things get better, but that's arguable. At any rate, in a society, laws and morality change. And that's why our individual political allegiances might change, or political understanding might change, or our political context might change, even as our socioeconomic context changes. But if we step back away from the minute concerns of a single individual and us benefiting, us trying to get our slice of the pie and it being bigger than everyone else's, if we step back and we look at the motivation of preserving all life, perpetuating all life, ours included. If we look at that and we look at how we act and how we can act to do that, to accomplish that mission, I think that most people would see that that's a good overall mission to have, a good overall motivation to guide oneself through one's life. And, something that might be illegal one day, stealing food for hungry children, might be legal the next. Something like that. Or lying when you shouldn't lie. But that lie preserving other people. And it also requires one to be a little bit uncertain about how things will proceed in one's life. And I'm not saying you should do illegal things. That's not the main point of this. But I mean, that's one of the more controversial sides of what I'm talking about. But if we accept that we don't know exactly how we're going to proceed towards this goal, we have more wiggle room. We have more ability to shift and change as an individual and what we're doing in life, career, and how we interact with other people and the kinds of people we interact with. People decide the specificity and box themselves in their life far too early on in life. I think that one needs room to change. And as long as you have the overall aim of preserving and perpetuating perhaps all life, motivation is life, being on the side of life. It can just be that. If you want to take out the preserving and perpetuating part, great. Being on the side of life. And then you have a whole lot of freedom. There's a lot of ways to do that. You don't have to do something huge. You can do something very small. And you can do things that are selfish sometimes for your own life, because you are life as well. But it should overall guide in the general direction of life. Not just our own, but if we're on the side of all life. And we'll find that things cooperate with us more. Even if you don't believe in karma, you'll find that the way that the universe reacts to somebody who has its interest in mind will generally be beneficial. Now, there are, I would caution you, there are limits to the ends justify the means. So be very careful about the means, but I don't think that it's either or. I think that we can choose a certain amount of wiggle room while understanding that there's certain, small evils that we won't do for a grander good. But there's a lot of wiggle room, and it has to do with your own development as a person as you grow and change. Because I often see that many people are shaped by the trauma that they go through, and they end up being so averse to the trauma that they went through that their original conception of that trauma and how they understood it, their relationship to maybe a very Christian family, and they just want to go the opposite direction. That trajectory it doesn't have a whole lot of wiggle room, because you have this conception of your trauma, and then the conceptualization tends to not change, especially when we make a hard decision about pure repulsion of going through that trauma. And I've been through trauma myself. But if we understand it in a grander context for ourselves and use that trauma to learn, rather than being repulsed by it or being outraged by it, coming to a place of calmness where we can analyze our life and what we've been through to use it to our best advantage, where that trajectory, that initial revulsion, isn't completely linear, to where we can grow in a way that what happened to us doesn't define where we're going in the future. People decide on definitions for themselves far too early on in life, and they tend to stick with them. It's unfortunate. And it's very hard for an individual to change after the age of 30. It happens, but human beings are, just on averages, it's very hard for somebody to change as far as what they believe, politically, spiritually, intellectually, philosophically. It's very hard to change after 30 for most people, just as a general rule. I have a suspicion that many people watching this might be an exception to a lot of the rules that I put out in a lot of my videos, as far as, and once again, we're the exceptions and not necessarily the rules, because I've changed quite a bit in the last 2 years after 30, and completely changed in big ways. But overall, I think that I've always, without having the words to describe it, I've always been on the side of life. You can call it compassion, but compassion also doesn't have a whole lot of wiggle room for sometimes needed selfishness. So being on the side of life, as simple as it sounds, as basic as it sounds, I found that that's always been who I was. And I think that's who we all are really deep down. I think that the differences that we see and the dogma that we see in the world are people forcing themselves in a box, and they become more cruel in those boxes, because it's unnatural to be forced in some of these boxes that people force themselves into, because they're convincing themselves that if I don't do this, then terrible things are going to happen to me, like they said. Whether it's an afterlife, whether it's in society, whether it's as a being. We tend to do very unnatural things to ourselves, ideologically, philosophically, and spiritually, when fear is the prime motivator. So being on the side of life, there doesn't have to be fear that falls into that. You don't have to believe in karma. I do, but you don't have to. Be always perceptive. If you're always perceptive, watch, try to learn, try to evolve. Try not to be defined what has happened to you, but learn from it and decide what happens to you on your own terms, not on the terms of what happened to you. Then I think that you'll live a much happier and fuller life. These are just my opinions. But overall, I think that we can be on the side of life, and we should be on the side of life. We'll find that our lives become better if we are. At any rate, thank you very much for watching. Hope this has been interesting. Hit that thumbs up down there. It really helps out the channel. Feel free to share this video, and comments are welcome. At any rate, thank you very much for watching, and I hope all of you have a wonderful day.